Hey guys, welcome back to Assemble Illinois. This new notice is about the notice of maladministration of elections. Joe, what is that all about?
Well, in this notice, we're going to ask one simple question. Where did they get the authority to change the election process in Illinois to a multiple day, multiple week event when our Constitution simply says it's supposed to be on one day? So we'll get into the details of that right here. And this notice is going to get emailed to all of our state reps. And this notice can be signed by anyone in America, because it is concerning the general elections, which are obviously the presidential and federal races, which affect everybody. So it is directed towards the Illinois legislature, but it is something that can be signed from anybody in any state as long as they're one of the people.
Okay. Before we dive into it, I'm going to ask you a couple quick questions. Is this notice about anything to do with election integrity and machines and like doing things wrong? What's it all about?
Yes and no. Ultimately, the answer to that is no. We're going back to the fundamental root of the issue. Jesus even said in Matthew 3:10, the axe is laid to the root of the tree. Therefore, every tree that doesn't produce good fruit must be hewn down and thrown into the fire. So we're just going to take the axe right to the root. We're not going after any type of fraud. We're not claiming fraud. We're not doing anything like that. We're simply going, who gave you the authority to change the election to multiple days when it's written in our Constitution that it's one day? The quick answer to that is you can't.
Okay. Let me pull up the notice here and we'll take a look at it. All right, so real quick, guys, if you haven't gone over a notice before, you don't know what they're all about, we have a video that describes what a notice is, how to fill it out, and to go through that process. So refer to that. We'll be bouncing back and forth with that. These start off as kind of a charge of what the notice is all about, and then how we're presenting ourselves as far as the person filling out the notice. So notice of maladministration of elections. Notice is to agent, is to principal, is to notice to the agent. Jump into the first section here. I guess it would be right here.
Yeah, the first section there, we're just going to, again, declare our right in Article 1, Section 5 of the Illinois Constitution, that the people have the right to assemble in a peaceable manner. We can consult for the common good. We can make known our opinions to our reps and apply for grievances. We're going to dive into that one. There'll be a forthcoming video on that particular part of our Constitution so you can understand it further. But until then, that's what we're standing on right now, is our right to assemble and to make known our opinion to our reps and apply for our grievances.
Okay. And then in the please take notice portion of these, that's just a highlight of what this is all about and how we're applying it. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's highlighting who we are. We're standing in our highest status, standing in jurisdiction as one of the people. And we're the ones coming as the bosses to say, hey, servants, what are you guys doing? Because that's not in our rule book.
Okay. And then when it gets into the maxims here that are below that here, those are just a way of using a maxim of law to kind of reinforce what we're also addressing, correct?
Correct. Maxims are settled fundamental principles, so they can't be rebutted. The only way you can rebut a maxim is with another maxim that would rebut it. So they're settled fundamental principles. It's a science in law. It's universally agreed upon. And there's no argument there as to whether the maxim is true. The only argument that can be made is whether you're applying the maxim correctly. Okay. Jumping back up to that other part, I don't want to miss that. It says, please take notice in a Republican form of government as guaranteed by Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution, the people have expressly granted legislature power to do certain things for the benefit of the people. Anything not expressly granted is prohibited, and all legislation must be in pursuance to the Constitution. It's very important because, number one, not all constitutions, they've been revised and reworded. So we have to look at the frame and form of government. All states are Republican form of government, which isn't Republican versus Democrat. It's not a party thing. It's a type of government, which means that the people hold all political power and can make changes to their government as they see fit.
Okay. And then I guess jumping down below there in the maxims, you've got the Miranda case, and that's just something you're going to be reinforcing what's going on here as well then?
Correct. All of these maxims in the Miranda case here are reflecting the upper part that I just read concerning the form of a Republican form of government. In a Republican form of government, our Constitution is an express trust indenture. What that means is it's a trust, it's a contract. The people that are the trustees are our servants. That would be our public officials. And it's expressed, which means what's written in the contract is what is written, what is not written is not written. So you can't just start filling in the gaps where you see fit if you haven't been granted the power to do that, which is why we have the maxims of law in there. The first one there says whatever is done in excess is prohibited by law. That's saying if it's not written and you're doing it, that's excessive. The second one says the expression of one thing is the exclusion of another. That's a very important thing there, because if we express something in our Constitution, it excludes the opposite of that. So just because the Constitution doesn't say it, it doesn't mean that they can just do something just because they think they can.
There we go. You can't make things up along the way, right?
No.
All right. So we're going to jump down to the next one here. Please take notice that the people have granted power to the government to hold our free and equal elections on a single day. That's a pretty strong statement right there.
Yep, it's right there in the Constitution. We'll get there.
The historical definition of election means the act of choosing a person to fill an office or employment by any manifestation or preference, as by ballot, uplifted hands, or viva voice or voice. And that's the definition right out of Webster's right there. Therefore,
that part is important because, well, let's read the next part.
Okay. Therefore, election is not simply the day the votes are counted, but it is the day in which the act of casting the votes takes place. Deviation from this process without granted power is a nullity.
Yeah. So a lot of the things that the excuse that you'll hear the elected servants say is that, well, we're counting the votes on election day, but we can receive the votes, in the months and weeks leading up to it. And that's just not true. The historical precedence of an election in this nation, which is important because our Supreme Court is recurring to the fundamental principles. They are currently going back to a historical analysis method. And that's what we're doing. We're demanding to recur to the fundamental principles and to go back to the historical meaning of what an election is, which means it's not just sending the votes out or the ballots out and then people cast their vote 3 or 4 or 5 or a week before the election, and then they send them in and then they just count them on the same day. That's not what an election is. The election is the process of voting and counting all on the same day.
So it's a complete process.
It's a complete process. And then the Illinois Constitution, going down there, Article 3, Section 3 says that all elections shall be free and equal. That's pretty straightforward right there. We could look at some of the other state constitutions to find more evidence of that, but we don't need to. Article 3, Section 6 says that as used, this is a quote from our Constitution, as used in all articles of the Constitution, except Article, 5, 6, 7, general election means the biennial election at which the members of the General Assembly are elected. Such election shall be held on a Tuesday, or on the Tuesday following the first day of November in even numbered years, or on such other day as provided by law. So the Constitution is the highest law of the land. Our state constitution is the highest law of the land, which means that we, the people, have said our elections will be on the Tuesday following the first Monday in November, or we've given and granted the authority of our legislature to pick a different day, singular day.
Right.
As provided by law. That doesn't mean they just get to make up whatever they want. That means they have to do it in pursuance to the Constitution. And remember that maxim that we read a little bit earlier. The exclusion of one, or how did that go? Right there. The expression of one thing is the exclusion of another. So we have expressed that it will be on the Tuesday, or you can pick another day, but it still has to be one day.
All right.
The next maxims there then, when anything is directly prohibited directly, it is prohibited indirectly also. And where the law prescribes a form, the non-observance of it is fatal to the proceeding, and the whole becomes a nullity. So you have to ask yourself, if they did not do the election as we prescribed, then what happens? Well, nothing. It was a nullity. So if we carry on our elections on multiple days instead of one day, they did not follow the Constitution. There was never a constitutional amendment put forth to the people to change that. And there's no emergency, there's no anything that can change that. All right. So then this final part is our final statement here. It says, please take final notice that the general election in Illinois is to be on one day only. It is maladministration for legislature to deviate from the expressed form and process in the Constitution, and any act that results from it becomes null. If you believe any of the above statements are untrue, or that you've been granted authority to deviate in form or process, please provide clear and unquestionable constitutional provisions that grant you such authority to create legislation that changes the form or the process of the people's elections. All responses must be in writing by affidavit, sworn under penalty of perjury, and postmarked within 5 days receipt of this notice, or you agree by acquiescence all statements in this notice are true in fact. Any disputes by any public officials who are bound by contract to the Illinois Constitution agrees to have these matters heard before an arbitrator of my choice and bound thereby. Further, you agree that you are acting with full knowledge, intent, and malice by trespassing against the people and interfering with the people's election, and that no court shall be able to rehear this matter, but it shall stand as truth and evidence in all courts of record. All responses not submitted under penalty of perjury will be considered non-responses. Any man or woman who decides to suppress this notice will be viewed as committing tortious interference with the contract between the people and their representatives and agrees to pay $5,000 per infraction. This notice is sent to you in the peace and love of Christ, that you may provide due care for the people. So the beginning of that is basically everything in a nutshell. One sentence, one statement. Please take final notice that a general election in Illinois is to be on one day only, and it's maladministration. That word, maladministration, it comes from the Virginia Constitution, which says that even if we're in the danger of maladministration, that we have the right to reform, alter, and abolish government. So they need to follow the contract. They've been using statutory language and all these different rules and emergencies and processes, and we're going to recur to the fundamental principles. So we're going to take the axe to the root and cut off anything that's not bearing good fruit. I don't care which side of the aisle someone is on. We don't have elections that people have confidence in. And one of the ways to restore that is to go right back to the original text of what our Constitution says, which is one day for the election. So that's what this notice is about. And they need to show us where they have the power to do what they're doing. And they're going to have to rebut it by sworn affidavit. Otherwise, they need to listen to the people on this.
All right, one last question, Joe, is how did you learn how to write this notice?
It's very simple. I'm a student of Dave Jose. You can find him on Rumble. You can find him on Telegram and on Twitter. He's Real Dave Cares for You on Twitter. He does incredible webinars, private training on the fundamental law, the fundamental principles, on the constitutions and the maxims of law, all based out of the Bible. It resonates very strongly with me. Amen. And so this is we're students of his, and he's doing a lot of nationwide things, and our focus is just to take those same things and apply them to Illinois. So if you want to learn more of how to do this and learn the fundamental principles, you can check him out on any of those spaces.
Awesome. All right, guys. So once again, if you want to fill this notice out, there's going to be a link below. It's going to have that button you can push on, and then it will take you right to the jot form. You'll fill that out. It'll automatically be emailed to the proper people, and that notice will be activated for you. If in the event that you don't want to follow the whole process of mailing them yourself, you can go ahead and do the mailing membership, and these will be mailed off and certified so that you can know that your notice has actually gone through the full process of actually being received by the end person that you're sending it to.